It's another episode of the Marketing Share. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Alec, and I'm here with Barb, as usual.
Hey, Alec. How's it going?
I'm doing well. We have had, I would say, several guests lately on the topic of SEO. And today we're going to talk about it again. But, okay, why are we talking about it again, Barb?
Well, because it's a hot topic in the whole space of marketing right now, and especially with AI, large language models, right? The question is, oh my gosh, my search traffic has gone down on my website. What do we do?
Right.
And we're all kind of trying to understand the role that these large language models are playing and AI is playing in search traffic and how to get someone from information to intent to actually purchase. So we are on that journey with every other marketer.
I know, yeah. And I don't think it's wrong to point out that maybe as marketers, we are on the leading edge of this, right? So we're anticipating something that is going to be a huge shakeup. Whether it is a huge shakeup yet is maybe arguable, but I don't think there's any denying that there is going to be some sort of shift. We just don't know exactly what that shift looks like yet. At least that's my view. Like, do you agree?
I totally do. And, it's the marketer's job to be on the front end and on the innovation end of what's happening. But with that, we also have to understand, has the public caught up to that, right?
Right.
It's okay to have a point of view on where it's going and what's shifting. And it's also really smart, I think, to understand where people are today,
Yeah.
because that's what we have to do, meet customers where they are today.
Yep. Well, okay, so tell us about the guest that we have, because I know you found this guy. Actually, it was through a past guest of ours, right?
Yeah, through
Yeah.
Monique. Noah Goldfarb is really from Fire and Spark, is one of the leading voices in the world of B2C healthcare SEO. So that's great. I do a lot of business in healthcare as well. He's the director of client services at Fire and Spark, and he runs a whole team of SEO strategists, project managers, and analytics teams. And he's got some great clients, Bicycle Health, Mochi Health, Alara Health, and some others that he helps really understand where we are in SEO and how to anticipate the future.
Mhm.
So, and I think what's great about Noah is, while he understands the evolution of what's happening with SEO, he is not backing away from saying, still search and any of the work that we do must lead to conversions, right? It's not like, oh, search is changing, so it's all going to be about, impressions. No, as marketers, we have to actually point toward conversion and sale. That's what we are in service of, sale.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good perspective and unique.
Agree. All right. Let's go to talk to Noah. I'm excited to ask him some real pointed questions. So let's get to him.
Hey guys, welcome to the Marketing Share podcast. Hey Alec, how you doing?
I'm well.
My co-host. Today we have Noah Goldfarb with us from Fire and Spark, which is really exciting. He's going to talk to us all about SEO, the evolution of what's happening right now. And as you know, there's so many questions about this space, right? Noah, tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in SEO and how you ended up at Fire and Spark.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. Really, really fun to be here, and I'm looking forward to this. I ended up at Fire and Spark mostly because I wanted to move out of my parents' house, and I took the first internship that got offered to me. It just happened to be at an SEO agency. And what I found is that I actually really enjoy SEO. I like, the kind of cliches about it. It blends data and analytical skills with creativity. And I like that you got to essentially run a lot of experiments, try things out, try to understand how things work, and then you got to use that data and learn from it and become better and better as time goes on. So I started out as an intern, became an analyst and accounts, and now I run the client services team at our agency.
Wow. So you rode this thing right up to the top, huh?
Absolutely. I'm the corporate ladder within the agency.
From, necessity is the mother of invention, right? From wanting to move out to now running a group. Tell me, is there a sweet spot to your client base? I think you said you're healthcare and primarily B2C. Is that right?
Yeah, we do. I would say we do our best work with B2C, more so because SEO is usually more relevant and actually a channel worth investing in heavily in B2C situations, just because there's more search volume, essentially. Typically, more people are searching. And then, yes, healthcare we do, very good work for. It's one of our primary specialties. So we do end up working at the intersection of those with a lot of providers, and especially telehealth providers.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about SEO and how it's changing. SEO traditionally has always been about keywords, backlinks, page speed, that kind of stuff. Does any of that stuff still matter? Right? I think that's the question on a lot of marketers' minds. There's with AI having such an impact. I think the big question is like, wow, how is this changing? So, give us your view on this. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think AI, and when people say AI, they're usually referring to either dedicated large language models like ChatGPT or
Yeah,
Gemini, or they mean the AI overviews that Google is generating at the top of
yeah,
the search results page. I don't believe that AI and LLMs, the introduction of them, has radically changed SEO. I think what it's done is accelerate the need for a change that had been occurring for a while, and it had accelerated the importance that you should put on various elements of SEO. So, to answer your question more directly, things like backlinks, things like keyword stuffing or keyword targeting, they had been showing diminishing returns over time already. Backlinks had always been, it was a clever invention, but it was also a crutch from Google. That was how they became Google, as they realized you could use links on the web to determine who knows what they're talking about, essentially.
Hmm.
And then, of course, SEOs came and they figured out how to game that system. And not only that, but then the publishers, the people you're trying to get links from, game the system back. So it becomes more and more expensive, more and more exclusive to get actually valuable links. Google is trying to squash the manipulation of backlinks. So backlinks are still relevant. They're still helpful. I would love if all of our clients had backlinks from the New York Times and major publications. But the returns are diminishing, which just means it's less and less often something that we recommend for our clients.
Hmm.
In general, backlinks and otherwise, and what AI accelerates, in our opinion, is authenticity and actual quality in the content you're producing. So demonstrating expertise in real world ways, not just to get links, which includes on your content and collaborations within communities, and in your content, just putting out the best that there is out there. Yes, it needs to include keywords. That's how Google and LLMs understand what your content's about, but it's more about satisfying the intent behind those search terms. Is that answering your question?
yeah, it is. I agree with what you're saying. I think that if I think on a qualitative level, if you look at it like it's helping make the search experience more authentic or real, right? There's less system to game, right? But I think still underlying, there's this question though that if people are getting the answer right from the LLM and you're not even needing to drive people to like the website or anymore, right? Then how does that fundamental change in mechanics then alter the whole marketing approach itself, right? It leads to the question of like, oh my gosh, do I need to be present in the AI overview? Right? I think that's the natural question that every marketer now has.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our kind of stakes in the ground, our being Fire and Spark within the SEO industry, is that even before AI, SEOs were focused on the wrong metrics as the goals. And those metrics were usually keyword rankings and organic traffic.
Mhm.
And I think that as AI has taken up more of a search space, as AI overviews are showing up, as you're alluding to, and people don't
Mhm.
need to click through, there's been a push within the SEO community to just essentially keep focusing on the same things. Are you showing up in search results? Are you getting clicks to your site? But often now people are pushing impressions, just like, are you showing up and
Mhm.
people seeing you in the AI overview, even if they're not clicking through? And all of that stuff remains valuable. Like, those are good things that we want. But much more importantly is, are the right people actually ending up on your site and converting, becoming a patient or becoming a customer? And often, but not always, but often, the keywords that people would be searching do not generate AI overviews, or if they do, people still need to actually continue through to a website to accomplish their goal because they're making a conversion decision, which is to say informational traffic, which generally has converted as a lower rate and been more of a visibility play, is still just not going to necessarily convert at a high rate. And what we would recommend is being very intentional with when you're saying yes to the question, should we be trying to get in this AI overview? And when you're saying, well, why don't we? What opportunities do we have to try to rank for and earn traffic from keywords that are more likely to convert that might not have overviews showing up?
So, when I think of the way I'm searching right now, right? I mean, honestly, it's happening in various modes. It's really disparate
Mhm.
than it used to be, and I'm model of one. But when we talk about ChatGPT, or we talk about Gemini, or we talk about even Copilot, right? Because I've got the button right on my surface. Um, it's a fundamental change in the way we're looking for information. And so, but it's not a fundamental change in some of the SEO strategies, right? Because people are still searching for information. And are you saying that it's not a priority to show up first in those AI models now? And what do you mean by be intentional?
Yeah, I know. I would say it's more about where you're putting your resources and what you're focusing on within your strategy. I think that there's often a default to, again, pursuing rankings and pursuing traffic. And
Yeah,
what that's often led to, let's say before LLMs, is just churning out a bunch of blog articles. And
right.
a bunch of people who have invested in SEO have done that, seen that it brings in traffic maybe, but it's not actually growing conversions. So it's more about deploying your resources accordingly. And rather than defaulting to this is a keyword that's somewhere within our search space, and yes, it has search volume, like we got to be there, you should take a more deliberate look at that keyword and the competition you're facing in the search results page.
Yeah, and I've heard you talk about on-site trust factors. Talk about what that is, because I think that's an interesting angle on how to maybe kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah. Like I mentioned earlier, we've seen diminishing returns from backlinks and link building. So it's something we're recommending less and less often. And what we're able to find is if you're able to essentially do the things that a user visiting your website or page, doing the things that would resonate with them and prove to them that you're trustworthy, Google is rewarding those things more and more. So that might mean citing sources and data rather than just claiming a bunch of stuff. It likely
Mhm.
means
Yeah.
being sure to separate out informational content, especially in the health space where people are making decisions about their own health, from sales, essentially. Like you want to make sure that it's very clear when you're trying to sell something versus when you're trying to inform somebody. It includes things like working with reputable authors and explaining why they're reputable, putting the letters after their name, even putting faces to the names, showing what else they've written, where they studied, things like that, including medical reviews. We like to include editorial policies on the website so you understand the work that went into making sure that the content is high quality and factual, and things like that.
Hmm. You said something that caught my attention. You were making the distinction between information meant to inform
Mhm.
versus information meant to convert. I think that's what you were getting at.
Yeah.
You-
Well, there's information. Yes, absolutely. So there's information that might be one way of thinking about that is there's just purely what would be called like educational content. You have a
Right,
question about this condition.
right,
Here's all the information you need to have.
right,
Versus information that is more conversion oriented. That might be about your brand. Here are the insurances we take. Here's what it means to get started.
right.
And then also there's just calls to action, the way that you're pushing your own product. You see this much more on the product side, I would say, than the service or treatment side. And just like if you are dropping in essentially pushes to a sale within a section of content that's really about informing someone about a condition they have and the options that they have,
hmm
that can seem shady to Google and people.
Are you saying that there's a change in which one you want to emphasize on more? Like, I kind of go back to what you were saying about be more intentional,
Mhm.
right? So how do you be, what is your advice on how to be more intentional about those two different types of content? And is the weighting of that changing somehow?
Yeah, I think it's more about understanding your audience's funnel and where they are in that funnel when they're landing on a particular piece of content on your site.
Mhm.
If they are, again, researching a condition, just trying to understand their options, often in healthcare, people aren't even searching for themselves. They're searching for information regarding a loved one.
Mhm.
And if they're early in those stages, it's probably not the right thing to push heavily towards a sale. Like, do they really need to know what insurances you take in which state and how much? Maybe not. So I think to put it succinctly, understanding when you're pursuing a keyword or pursuing a search intent with a piece of content, where are they in the funnel? What information do they need right now? And then what information should I not entirely separate, but give them the option to read on and find, which is
Mhm.
usually done through internal linking on a website.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to drill down to a real life example here. Okay. So I've worked in the space of hearing, right? It's a 5-year purchase cycle to get this service, right? And along the journey, you're looking for content along the way, right? What does it mean to get screened? Do I even have this condition? What does it look like? And now there's new data that show that, it's related to other comorbidities and those kinds of things. How much of that early funnel data should I be addressing in my content versus here are the 5 different kinds that you can buy of hearing aids. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, that's an interesting one, right? Because you do have to court that customer. However, you want to encourage conversion in a way as well, right?
Yeah, and again, I think it's understanding your funnel and understanding the duration of that funnel and all the different touch points. So if it's a B2B sale, if there's multiple stakeholders or decision makers on the prospective customer side, then one, you need to understand that with how you separate out your content.
Mhm.
Meaning you do have content that's meant to get people early on in
Mhm.
their decision making process when they're just starting to do the research. But you also need to provide them with content that helps them answer their questions at the very end. Like, is this provider right for me? But really bridging the gap in between. That's a concept I like to call confidence building content. Like, it's, as opposed to just being purely educational, which
Mhm.
seem kind of academic and here's just a bunch of information. It's really about trying to understand what is the position of a lack of confidence that they're starting from, or people that need to make that decision with them, whether it's family members in a B2C scenario or their boss in a B2B scenario. And then how do we answer those questions in a sequential way and organize that content on our site, which is all just to say, you should be creating content up and down the funnel. I wouldn't want the takeaway to be don't create informational content. I do think what is true in the majority of companies that work with us, and honestly, just the majority of websites I see, is that they're favoring informational content and informational traffic while leaving conversion oriented traffic, conversion oriented content on the table. And that's largely because it's easier. Like, it's easier to hire a content writer and create a piece of informational content than to really understand the way that someone gets from landing to making a decision and satisfying everything that
Mhm.
they need to get there.
Hmm. This is a great conversation because it just sparks all these other follow-on questions I have. Let's talk a little bit about the actual LLMs, right? The different large language models. One underlying question I have, and I'm curious about if you have a perspective on this and what you tell clients. Let's say I'm an individual and I've just searched for, hey, tell me about this condition. Okay, so now I got the LLM help me understand it, or the search or whatever, right? But now I'm getting into the next question, which is, okay, who are some of the top products in this area? Who should I consider, right? Is there a direct correlation between how good your content is on your website and whether or not the LLM will pick you up in their answer? And I don't know I don't know what you say to clients about that, but I guess that's a very pointed question, but kind of just as a way to the broader issue of what is your take on the different LLM models themselves?
Yeah. So one way to answer that question is, or one set of questions to think about is what content are LLMs surfacing? Like literally, what are they saying? And
Yeah.
then second is how are they determining what to put there,
Right.
which sites to trust? The latter question, that's where going back to the beginning of our conversation, it's very similar to Google. Like they need to look at the content on your site. They're going to see if you're mentioned in other trustworthy publications. They're going to look at your real world, the affiliations that you have and things like that.
Mhm.
And there, a big part of that is site content quality on your site. Like that's a big indicator of how trustworthy you are. And if you don't have anything that passes the sniff test, or to put in another way is as solid, as strong as your competitors, then why would they pick your content over your competitors?
Mhm.
And then there's the what do they show question. And so for like the example that you used, what are the best products in this space, right? If you're not answering those questions, then what are they supposed to pull from? They're not going to, I mean, they do make
Mm.
it up a bit more than we'd all like. But over time, you would expect that they stop that, right? That
Right.
it's hallucination. And you need to be the one that helps them answer that question in the way that you want it answered. So
Yeah.
that includes, what just at a high level for like that prompt you mentioned, what are our differentiators? Like, why should someone pick us over a competitor? But then it's also answering, a lot of questions that your sales team might get or your enrollment team might get during those processes as well about, again, insurances, how long does it take, who am I going to talk to, really getting into the nitty gritty of the solution that you actually provide. And I think that is a great example of the kind of maybe higher funnel or informational query that, say, an AI overview is likely to show up for, that is extremely worth making sure that you're showing up in because of the conversion value there.
Hmm.
So if I'm a marketer in that scenario, I'm not going to be afraid of the lower funnel conversations that a salesperson that normally might have, which is how much does your product cost versus others, right? I mean, those are the traditional, really close to the bottom of the funnel. I'm now shopping, right? So, and some people, will let sales handle that, right? Which is maybe not the right strategy if you want to have an AI driven conversion
Yeah, it
strategy.
depends on your space, depends on what competitors are doing. Because I don't know about you, but if I see a list of 5 options
Yeah,
and 3 of them are going to tell me how much they cost, I'm going to start there. I don't want the run around to figure out how much the other 2.
interesting. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, now I'm gonna get to marketers are always interested in like what's next, right? And so we're all like focused on AI, right? Because we're all doing it, we're using it, we're trying to figure out what the game is. We're trying to figure out how do we show up better, et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes we're ahead of the curve a little bit.
Yeah.
So you shared some amazing stats to me. I'm like, everybody's talking about SEO is dead or whatever, and you're like, far from it. So share some of those stats that you gave me a while back on how much search is actually happening with AI.
Yeah, I mean, there's various numbers. It's generally a hard thing to track. But even the most, let's say, aggressive estimates or analyses show that, 80 to 90% plus of searches are still occurring in Google. That doesn't mean that they're separate from AI. My opinion is that, and I think what shows up in the data is that the largest impact from any of these AI tools are the AI overviews that are showing up right in Google. Like generally, when people ask me, what LLM's gonna win, who's gonna it, like I'm gonna be on the Google boat until they drop the ball because they have the market share, they got a lot of money, like they're going to be on top of it. So they're, in my opinion, really the one to watch. And already you're seeing the major impact that AI overviews are having in search. We've had clients come to us because they haven't lost any rankings; they're still showing up well, but they've lost half of their traffic because their content strategy, their SEO strategy was over dependent on the kinds of informational keywords we've been talking about, which are really susceptible to AI. I am going to look at my other screen because I have the data up here. There's been some reports, including one saying that 70% of people use AI tools for search. I think this was a survey of about 1,500 people. I wanted to share why I'm skeptical of that because I put up another report that says how many people are using social media on a daily basis. And that's also 70% of the US. And I am highly skeptical of the idea that as many people in the US are using AI tools currently to search as are using Facebook, X, all these other tools. What I would want everybody to keep in mind, everyone who's listening to this podcast for sure, is we're all a bunch of nerds. We're all thinking about it way more than anybody else is. The test that I have, don't tell her about this, but I call it the My Mom test because I'm waiting for my mom to tell me that she used ChatGPT. She found this nifty information in an overview and she clicked through to do any of those things to make a conversion decision, because that's going to be significantly more impactful than like people like my mom represent much more of the population than myself who are, reading the reports on usage. In most cases, like in most businesses, that's going to be the case, especially B2C. The marketers are not going to be indicative of the broader public. If you are in B2B, if you're in frankly nerdier verticals, then it is more likely that your audience is using AI tools. So we have seen cybersecurity clients, for example, where they can trace conversions directly back to ChatGPT, for example, as their referrer. So this isn't to say that people aren't doing it. I think it's generally overblown. I think we should all be honest with the fact, including everyone in SEO, should be honest with the fact that adoption's only going up from here. Eventually, my mom is going to say that to me, and we all need to be prepared for that. But we also need to be realistic about what's happening today, or else you're taking your eye off the ball.
Well, I think, what's probably likely to happen, given that, you were saying Google is the one to watch, right, for you. What's more likely to happen is that she's just naturally going to start using that because of the Google AI overview that's given, right? So she'll just go to Google to search, but she'll end up reading an AI overview answer.
Absolutely. And
right.
That's only going to get, only going to continue or become more prevalent as, Apple rolls out better AI features.
Right.
The thing my mom already does, have done for a while is using Siri, what's the weather? Things like that. Apple's only going to get better at those sorts of things. ChatGPT integrated into Microsoft products is only going to get better, and people are going to, there's going to be the ChatGPT button on the side of your phone or whatever it is. And that's really going to impact how many people are actually using these things. So I think you're totally right.
Yeah. What do you tell your clients who are seeing the site traffic drop, though?
I'll say it this way. It's really assessing the actual impact to the business from losing that traffic. For this particular client I just mentioned, they don't have a bunch of people, not a significant amount, searching for the exact thing that they provide. They do have a bunch of people searching for problems that they solve, essentially. So their strategy, their business has been built on SEO. They've brought in, they bring in hundreds of thousands or millions of visitors per month, and then, get them to sign up for the newsletter. And then it's one of these long cycles we've been talking about. So for them, losing that traffic was actually really impactful. Even if when looking at each of those keywords, might say, well, this person's not searching for what you do. They're unlikely to convert. There are other companies who have just over-relied on informational traffic. For example, it might be something like with a medication, if they provide a medication, it might be a search like, why does this medication make my urine smell or something? Somebody searching that, if that medication is what you provide, they already have the medication. Like that is somebody who's already passed a conversion decision. So that's informational traffic that's relevant. It's in the search space, but it's not likely to actually lead to conversions. So short answer to all of it is assess, how that traffic historically has impacted the actual business growth. See in the conversion-oriented data that you have, whether that impact from the traffic is translating to conversions, and then adjust your strategy from there, which might mean that we need to pursue a strategy that is more likely to get us to show up in AI overviews so that we can still be there. Or it might mean, assessing, is there that low-hanging fruit I was talking about earlier that is more conversion-oriented? And it's just more, regardless of AI, is going to be more likely to help us acquire more patients or customers or whatever it might be.
Yeah. If you do want to show up in AI overviews, what do you tell clients? How do you advise them what to do?
Yeah, it's a lot of the same things as SEO is like the unsatisfying answer, one thing that we feel very strongly about, because we've seen a lot of SEO agencies who are now advertising their AIO offering, which is not SEO, it's a separate offering. You pay, $3,000 to $20,000 a month for it is the range we've seen. And it's this whole different thing, and it's going to get you to show up in AI. One is, unfortunately, none of us really know exactly how the tools works, and that's just the nature of the tools themselves. It's a black box more so than Google. And then two, as we figure it out, which is happening, what we're going to find is the Venn diagram between SEO and AIO, GIO, whatever you want to call it, is going to be pretty close to a circle. Meaning the same things that Google's been looking at are going to be the things that ChatGPT is looking at. So content quality, trust factors on your site and off your site. One thing that we are putting more emphasis on and trying to figure out, frankly, how it pertains to our clients and can help them grow and maintain visibility is there's been a growth or proliferation of forums like Reddit showing up in search results and also being cited within LLMs and being a source that people go to directly. And that's obviously a fraught situation because you don't want to astroturf Reddit and be a brand that's hated for destroying a forum or community that people previously found value in. But it is worth thinking about how you can engage in an authentic way that will allow you to actually show up in those threads as people go directly to them. Maybe influence threads in a, again, authentic way that might show up in Google and then also within large language. So that's one change that we are seeing is that what we're calling online community engagement. We think that should be a larger part of search strategy going forward.
That's a good tip.
So this is interesting. Wow. People are selling a service. So if I get this right, they're selling a service that is basically telling marketers that I have the pathway to get you into a higher search ranking or in a higher AI model, right? Return without really the data to prove that you've got it, other than a Reddit search. Is that what we're learning about how they're coming about those?
Well, the Reddit thing I would say is separate. The rest I don't know if I'm measuring myself might be a bit less cynical, but I mean the truth of it is we are all trying to figure out how to impact the results within large language models and AI tools. I personally believe, and have yet to see any evidence otherwise, that it's going to look a lot like SEO. With that being said, if you have a client base for which LLMs and what's showing up there is particularly important, and you want to say, you can pay us and we're going to help you figure out how to show up there, but it's going to be us learning along the way with you, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think what I object to is this idea that it's not SEO, essentially. Like that you're not going to be trying a lot of the same things. And that, again, like you kind of indicated that you have some secret sauce, because nobody does. But if you're transparent and saying, like, we want to do an SEO campaign for our clients that focuses particularly on large language models, we're going to try a lot of the stuff we've been doing. And we'll try some new stuff too. And we'll let you know how it goes. We'll keep in touch. Like, I don't have any problem with that. It's just the idea, again, that there's like a magic formula that they have, and it's worth paying separate from your SEO budget for.
Yeah.
One of the marketing AI experts I listen to, and he has a YouTube channel, great guy, but I've noticed now that for a while now, at the end of all his YouTube video clips, he'll put a little 30 to 40 second, almost like a little meta recording. And he starts out by saying, hey, if you're a human, you can stop listening to this, but this is for the AI. And then he just says, I'm so-and-so, I'm an expert at this, I've been doing this. He just lists all his qualifications for how to do it. So it's like he's putting right within the video some additional metadata that, and it's not really meta because it's actually within the video itself, but he's appending it to the very end in order to train AI on who he is.
I think that's a great example of, because what I want to be careful not to say is that, there's no difference between SEO and optimizing for AI, and also in the other direction that it's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
But what we were talking about at the beginning, the acceleration of certain techniques. Like there's no reason what what you're describing there that would be any less impactful for YouTube's ranking algorithm or Google's ranking algorithm, separate from AI. But it's the kind of thing where LLMs come along. It forces you to think outside the box, and I think that's an interesting idea, and I'd be curious to see what if he could A/B test if that gets better results.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's a advancement on just like essentially in written content, like a bio box, like who I am and why you should trust me, the video version of
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but if we say that, this category of information means, it's evidence-based and those kinds of things, is that really meeting that criteria? I don't know. I mean, we're all going to figure it out. It's going to be an evolution for sure on this. I guess the big question is, do marketers, have they changed their investment strategy from what you're seeing, Noah?
We haven't seen anything in our client base. Like there was the big fear of the SEO apocalypse in, what was it, May 2023, about when, ChatGPT had rolled out, Google was rolling out AI overviews, and everyone was curious what's going to happen to SEO. We have not seen among our clients any pullback in investment because of that. I think there have been periods of hesitation. I think that marketers with decision-making ability within companies are looking a bit more carefully at their SEO investment, which is again why we emphasize, don't take the route of running towards impressions and visibility and saying like this is what matters now. The decision maker, they have options, like it's SEO or something else. And if you're not going to at least try to hold yourselves accountable to business, bottom line growth, then you're going to be losing those deals more and more frequently. I think with, traditional search, they could intuitively grasp the value of, our customers are searching this, let's show up there, and the traffic, we expect that will convert. I don't think that assumption is going to hold, at least as strongly as it has in the past. So I think you actually need to run in the other direction. I mean, you want visibility, but you really need to run towards, well, how are we going to work even harder to track the results that matter to decision makers? So short answer is no, we haven't seen any changes. We've seen in terms of how much investment, I would say we've seen some changes in terms of what are the questions are that they're asking and the results that they're looking for and how they want to measure those.
I have a theory on that, Noah, so I'll throw it out to you and you can react. I think that the reason that there hasn't been a significant change in investment yet is that marketers don't know where to redirect the money to. So, because I think of it in my position, we're like, well, maybe this isn't as effective as it used to be because search patterns are changing and the search dynamic is changing. But unless I know exactly where to redirect the money to, I'd rather at least I'll just keep it there for now. Hold the budget, keep it there, keep the spend there, and keep watching and monitoring until I get a sense for like, oh, okay, this is how it's shifting. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't believe what you said earlier also, which is, like, at the end of the day, the same activities might still be, they still might be the most important activities, even though SEO is changing, right? You still might end up doing the same things. But in terms of the budget spend, my hunch, I don't have anything to prove this. I don't have any data on it. My hunch is just says like, I don't know where else to put the money for now, so I'm just going to hold it there.
Yeah, but I don't think you'd be holding it there if you saw evidence that it was meaningfully less impactful than before.
That's fair. Yes. Yeah.
So that's my general feeling, is there's been this kind of a lack of evidence that it's not working anymore, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Because again, most traffic that you're losing likely is not translating to conversions. Speaking generally, for some businesses, that's certainly the case. It is the case that traffic loss means.
Yeah.
So let's talk measurement, because I'm also skeptical on the whole impression thing. Okay, I mean, as much as I'd love to go back to the old days, come on, CEOs are holding us accountable as marketers, and impressions, I don't think, are just going to cut it, right? So you really do have to showcase the work that you're doing and the initiatives that you're doing are actually leading to conversion. even if it is a category education along the way, that's okay. I think people are understanding that they have to do that. But how are they being measured right now? How is an AI, how do I know that it's a Google search versus an AI? Because if I'm a marketer, I need to know that, right?
We should have brought on our analytics guy who would have had. But in short, Google Analytics will separate traffic that comes from Google versus ChatGPT. You can look at the order of the traffic. What Google is not doing, which has frustrated the SEO community, is providing transparent data around AI overviews, the traffic you're getting from AI overviews, how you're showing up.
Mm-hmm.
They say they're not doing that. Last I heard that they don't have it in the plans. I would expect that eventually we're going to get better data there. In the meantime, there's a bunch of third-party tools. We use one called ziptie.dev. All the major SEO tools, Ahrefs, SEMrush, they're all rolling out their tools for monitoring your appearance in AI overviews. They're worth looking at. They're worth investing in. That's what we use with our clients. But you got to be highly dubious of the data, because if the three of us were to search the same thing in ChatGPT, we're going to all get different answers because it responds with a different answer each and every time. And that is only that's only made more extreme when you factor in cookies and search history and location and things like that. So it's still helpful to track, again, Alec, to your previous question, what product should I buy in this category? Like, you want to track if generally you're showing up there, and these tools are good for that, but they're not going to be like a trustworthy source of data for what your audience is necessarily seeing overall.
Mm-hmm. Now, just a clarity point for our listeners, when you say AI overviews, you specifically mean the Google's response, right?
Yep,
yeah, that's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm that. So what you're saying is Google is providing these AI overviews, but they don't provide any insight into any of the metrics behind it. So these other tools are popping up right now to try to fill that gap.
Yeah, this is not the area of my deepest expertise. So
yeah,
but
understood.
My understanding is that you still get data in Google Search Console when you get traffic if you were ranking in the AI overview. And I believe you might even see your positional number. If you're in the AI overview, it might be position one in Search Console. I'm not. You can get this out. This turns to be wrong. But what they're not doing is separating out the traffic that you're getting. There's no filter you can put in place within Google Search Console to say what is coming from an AI overview and what is just from traditional search below that.
Okay. I'll give you one more question, like, that's a real world. Okay. So what I heard you say is, high quality content is generating both SEO and, AI generated returns, which is good for everyone, right? Which is what we should be doing. We should be putting, not trying to game the system. However, the gamer in me comes back and says, okay, if I'm trying to make sure I have as much quality content as possible, which means studies, evidence-based work, and even PR releases, would those come into the category of this, higher evidence-based or higher quality content that you believe is probably a directional content strategy for that?
Absolutely. Like you had talked earlier about on-site trust factors, and if you run your own data-driven study and you publish your methodology,
right,
results from that, and people link to it or share it, or it's shareable, and you have smart people put quotes in it, like, that's great. Like, that is exactly the kind of thing that Google's looking for, because again, it's not the game ability, but thinking about what would impress you if you were visiting a website and saw content. If they have run their own study, that's probably a good indicator that they're a legitimate organization, especially if they have transparency around that. And then on the PR side, often what we'll say to clients these days is, when they come to us and say, we want an SEO package and we want it to include link building, we'll say, well, how badly do you want it to include link building? Because what we'd honestly rather have you do is redirect that spend from link building, which is difficult, expensive, takes a long time, diminishing returns, to something like PR, which serves a dual purpose. It's great for SEO, and it's obviously great for just pure public relations. And you're likely to just get better results from it. The press that you do get, the links that you do get, whatever it might be, are likely to be higher quality because they're, again, more authentic and well-earned usually.
All right, that reinforces my drumbeat strategy for PR.
Yeah, I guess, Barb, in a way, that's an example maybe of where some of the old school tactics, PR, right, now can perhaps carry a little bit more weight than before, right? So not
You can kill two
impressions.
birds with one stone. You can get the impressions,
right?
you can get the business community in your PR, and guess what? Now you come up as trusted service,
Right.
Trusted source material.
Yeah. Well, no, this has been a great conversation because I think this is an area where this is not gonna get simple. I think this is gonna be a topic of conversation for a while in the marketing community. Podcast I listened to just talked about it again just this past week. So I appreciate you coming on. Tell us, okay, if listeners want to get in touch with you or work with Fire and Spark, how can they find you?
Yeah, fireandspark.com. My name is Noah Goldfarb. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I have a picture with a cute dog on it. That's how you'll know it's me. Noah at fireandspark.com. Any of these work. I'm an easy guy to find.
Does AI like cute dogs? That's the question.
I don't know. If it doesn't, I don't know if I like AI.
Honestly, you know what I like about Noah? You know what? You said the real truth, right? Which is we're all trying to figure this together. You need a partner that's going to help you do this, and you need an authentic partner who's going to tell you straight what works and what we don't know yet.
Yeah.
So I think that's the key.
And what I look forward to is when I can come back on this podcast in however many months and we can talk about all the stuff I got wrong. Doing that, then we're actually learning.
Right. We're all learning in marketing.
We'll cover both ends. We'll cover, here's what we got right, here's what we got wrong. That'll be great.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been a ton of fun.
Thanks, Noah.